Good afternoon to you all. I am Mr. Anosike, the Agric Science teacher, Junior Secondary, from the Masters Vessel Classical Academy, Federal Housing Locals here in the city of Umaya. This afternoon, I'll be teaching us on a very important topic in agricultural science that cut across the junior secondary, the senior secondary, and the tertiary level. And that topic is soil fertility and plant nutrition. Soil fertility and plant nutrition. This is the topic we'll be considering this afternoon. And under this topic, I'll be highlighting I'll be giving out the highlights of this topic. Important things we need to know, the components of this soil fertility and plant nutrition. And it includes the following. Number one, the meaning of soil and the types. Number two, the meaning of soil fertility. The meaning of soil fertility and properties. Meaning of soil fertility and properties of soil fertility. Number three, we equally need to know the nutrients present in the soil. The nutrients present in the soil. The nutrients present in the soil. Now, finally, I will cap it up with ways of maintaining this soil fertility. Ways of maintaining soil fertility. Ways of maintaining soil fertility. These are some of the highlights of this topic, soil fertility and plant nutrition. Now let me start with the first highlight, and that is soil. When we talk about soil, soil is the topmost layer of the earth in which plants grow. Soil is the topmost layer of the earth in which plants grow. Now basically we have three types of soils, and they include the sandy soil, the loamy soil, and the clayey soil. But we still have the other two types that are not all that recognized in the world of agriculture. And those two types of soil include silt and humus. Silt and the humus. Silt and the humus. These are two different kinds of soil, but they are not all that recognized. Now let me quickly go over to the second highlight of the topic, and that's why I'll be laying much emphasis on, and that is soil fertility. You may ask, what is soil fertility? Soil fertility is the amount of nutrients present in the soil that is sufficient for plant growth. Let me take it again. Soil fertility simply means the amount of nutrients present in the soil that will be sufficient for plant growth. That's what we mean by soil fertility. The amount of nutrients present in the soil that will be sufficient for plant growth. Of course, as a farmer, if your soil is not fertile, you are wasting your time. Your harvest will not be bountiful, your yield, the yield of your crops will be very, very poor. Now, let's quickly go back to the properties. What makes up this soil fertility? That's what we mean by properties of soil fertility. A fertile soil is one which has adequate or sufficient micro and macroorganisms in them. That's number one property of soil fertility. Another is a soil which has adequate micro and macroorganisms in them also. This second property of soil fertility. Number one, I said it is soil that have adequate or sufficient micro and macroorganisms. Number two, I said a fertile soil is one which have adequate or sufficient macro and major nutrients. I'm coming to that. I'll teach us what we mean by micro and macronutrients. That is in the third highlight. Another property of this soil fertility is a soil that has adequate organic matter with good soil structure and water retention. What do I mean by soil structure? Soil structure has to do with the arrangement of soil particles in their aggregate of sizes and shapes. That is what I mean by soil structure. So a fertile soil has adequate organic matter coupled with good soil structure and water retention. I said that soil structure has to do with the arrangement of soil in their order of shapes and sizes. Now finally, a fertile soil has low pH level between the range of 6.0 to 6.8, between the range of 6.0 to 6.8. So these are the four major properties of soil fertility. Now let me quickly go over to the third highlight of this very topic, soil fertility and plant nutrition. And that is the nutrients present in the soil. The nutrients present in the soil. Now when I talk about soil fertility, it has to do with nutrients. It boils down to nutrients present in the soil that is capable of, making crops to grow better. Nutrients present in the soil are divided into two. I'm talking about the nutrients present in the soil now. The nutrients present in the soil are divided into two, and they include macro and micronutrients. Macro and micronutrients. These are the two major divisions of the nutrients present in the soil. Now you may ask, what are macronutrients? What are macronutrients? What are macronutrients? Macronutrients are those nutrients that are required by plants in large quantities. Those nutrients that are required by our crops in large quantities. Whenever our plants are lacking this macronutrient, it will be very noticeable. It will be very, very obvious that these plants are lacking one nutrient or the other. And those plants definitely will not do well. Examples of these macronutrients include the following. Number one, you have your nitrogen. Very important. This is the major macronutrients in the soil. This is the number one, the most important macronutrient in the soil. And that is nitrogen. Another one we have is phosphorus. Phosphorus. P. We probably have another one, and that is potassium. That is potassium. Potassium K. We probably have another one, that is your calcium. Your calcium. Your Ca. We probably have another one, and that is your magnesium. Your magnesium. Your Mg. And a whole lot of them. There are so many, numerous to mention. Your nitrogen, your phosphorus, your potassium, your calcium, your magnesium, and so on and so forth. These are the major nutrients we are talking about, present in the soil. They are required by our plants in larger quantities, of which is deficiency will be very, very noticeable by farmers. Now let's quickly go over to micronutrients. Let's quickly go over to micronutrients. Micronutrients. Like I said earlier on, that the nutrients present in the soil are divided into two, and that's your major nutrients and your macronutrients and the micronutrients. The second one we have is micronutrients. Like the name implies, micro. Micronutrients are those nutrients that are required by our crops in smaller amounts or in smaller quantities, of which its deficiencies are not all that noticeable to crops or to the plants, as the case may be. Those are your micronutrients. Is either you call it micronutrient or trace nutrients. Micro or minor, micro or minor nutrients or elements. Nutrients or elements. Micro or minor nutrients or elements. Why these ones? Is either you call them major nutrients or you call them major macronutrients or major or trace elements. They are needed by our crops in larger quantities, of which their deficiencies are very, very noticeable to the crops. I've highlighted the examples of macronutrients. So that you call it macro, major, or trace. So in the exams, do not be confused. They may ask which of the following is not an example of a trace element. They are talking about macro. Or which of the following is not an example of a major element. They are talking about macro. So it's either you call it macro, major, or trace. They are required by the plants in larger quantities. The examples include your nitrogen, your phosphorus, your potassium, your calcium, your magnesium, and so on and so forth. Now in micro, it's either you call it micro or trace elements. They are required by plants in smaller quantities. Their deficiencies to the crops are not all are noticeable. Examples of these micronutrients include one, your chlorine, your cobalt, your iodine, your molybdenum, your copper, your zinc, your manganese. Remember, manganese is different from magnesium. Magnesium is a major element or a trace element, magnesium. But your manganese is a minor element or a micro element. Your chlorine, your cobalt, your iodine, your molybdenum, your copper, your zinc, your manganese, they are all micronutrients. Their deficiencies to the crops are not all noticeable. Unless you are a farmer, you're a good farmer, you're a good agriculturist. That's when you notice or when you will observe that these crops are lacking these micronutrients. Now, let me go back to the concluding part of this topic. And that is ways of maintaining soil fertility. Ways of maintaining soil fertility. Ways of maintaining soil fertility. Remember I said ab initio that as a farmer, if your soil is not fertile, you are wasting your time. Just like we're in farming season now. If your soil is not fertile, at the end of the day, you come out with nothing. In fact, your yield will be nothing to write home about. Your yield will be nothing to write home about. How do you maintain your soil fertility so that you have bountiful harvest? The following are the ways by which a farmer can maintain soil fertility. Number one is through fertilizer application. Number two is through bush fallowing. Number three is through planting of cover crops. Number 4 is through mulching. And finally, we have weed control. Weed control. And there's another one, that is crop rotation. Crop rotation. I'll be discussing these ways of maintaining soil fertilities holistically. I'll be discussing them holistically, one after the other. Fertilizer application, bush fallowing, planting of cover crops, mulching, weed control, and crop rotation. These are the major ways by which farmers can maintain their soil fertility so that they have bountiful harvest. Number 1, fertilizer application. You may ask, what is fertilizer? Of course, there is no how I be teaching fertilizer application without knowing what fertilizer is. Now, mind you that fertilizer is different from manure. Most times, students or farmers used to mistake fertilizer for manure, but they're not the same. When we talk about fertilizers, fertilizers are chemicals that are synthesized in the laboratory to correct either single or multiple deficiencies lacking in the soil. That's a fertilizer. They are chemicals synthesized in the laboratory to correct either single or multiple deficiencies that are lacking in the soil. That is a fertilizer. Now, what about manure? Manure are naturally decaying organic matter that are added to the soil to improve the nutrients in the soil. The naturally decaying organic matter added to the soil in order to improve the fertility of the soil. That is manure. I have succeeded in making a distinction here, or a difference between fertilizer and manure, so that you not mistake both of them. Now, you equally need to know these fertilizers, types of fertilizers we have. We have basically 2 types of fertilizers. You have your simple fertilizer, your compound fertilizers. Simple fertilizers and compound fertilizers. Simple fertilizers are those fertilizers that are added to the soil to correct nothing but one deficiency lacking in the soil. Simple fertilizers are those fertilizers that are added to the soil to correct single deficiency lacking in the soil. Examples of simple fertilizers include your nitrogen phosphates, your potassium phosphates, and your phosphorus phosphates. These are the 3 major examples of simple fertilizer. Now, the other one we have compound fertilizers. These are combination of nitrogen fertilizer and phosphorus fertilizers mixed together. Compound fertilizer, just like the name implies, they are correcting many deficiencies in the soil. They are correcting major nutrients, they are correcting macronutrients and all that. All the deficiencies lacking in the soil, they can correct it. Those are your compound fertilizers. Another thing you need to know as a farmer is ways of applying this fertilizer. You know, it's one thing to have fertilizer, just like this farming season we are now, and it's another thing to apply it. We have basically about 5 ways of fertilizer application. Ways of fertilizer applications. Number 1 is top dressing. Top dressing method. Methods of fertilizer application. Methods of applying fertilizers. Applying fertilizers. Methods of applying fertilizers. Number 1 is top dressing. Top dressing. Top dressing method has to do with the application of fertilizers at the base of the plant. Assuming this is your plant. This is your plant. Top dressing has to do with application of fertilizers at the base. You open a soil here. You open, some part of the soil here and you apply your fertilizer. That's what we mean by top dressing. Application of fertilizers at the base of the plant. Another method we have is your side dressing. Side dressing is either you call it side dressing or row application method. Number 2, row application. Row application or side dressing. This method of fertilizer application is normally used in a place where you have ridges. When the ridges is in rows, you now start applying fertilizer by the side of those ridges. That is what we mean by row application or side dressing, by the side of those ridges. Another method of fertilizer application is broadcasting method. Broadcasting. Broadcasting method. Broadcasting method. Broadcasting method has to do with spreading of fertilizers evenly into the farmland before plowing your farm. Broadcasting method, like I said earlier on, is the spreading of fertilizers evenly into the farmland before plowing, so that it will be incorporated, it will be, it will mix thoroughly before you start planting. That is a broadcasting method. And broadcasting method is one of the best methods of fertilizer application. Reason because during plowing, the fertilizers will be incorporated thoroughly and evenly into the soil before planting activities will take place. So broadcasting method is one of the best methods of fertilizer application. We have another one called foliar method. Foliar method. Foliar method of fertilizer application. Foliar method in agriculture, foliar means leaves. Leaves, leaves. And those fertilizers is always in liquid form. It is quite unfortunate that most farmers are ignorant of this. Some of them have not seen it before, but we have it. Liquid fertilizer. Of course, you dilute it with water before you start applying. And you apply it on the leaves, on the foliar of your crops. It's called foliar method. You get the liquid fertilizer, you dilute them. After diluting them, you now start applying them on the leaves of the crops. That is a foliar method. Another method we have is your fertigation method. Fertigation method. Fertigation method has to do with method of fertilizer application, whereby fertilizers are applied together with irrigation, or fertilizers are applied in combination with irrigation. Immediately after applying fertilizer, you channel your irrigation. You may ask, what is irrigation? Irrigation is the artificial application of water into the farmland in order to supplement insufficient rainfall. That's the irrigation. The artificial application of water into the farmland in order to supplement insufficient rainfall. So in fertigation method fertilizer application, immediately after applying fertilizer, you channel your irrigation activities. Of course, this is mainly used by commercial farmers. Commercial farmers that have their irrigation, irrigation facilities. Immediately after applying their, irrigation into the farmland. So these are some of the ways of applying fertilizers: your top dressing, your row application, your broadcasting, your foliar method, your fertigation method, and so on and so forth. Now let's quickly go over to the second one. That is your bush fallowing. That is your bush fallowing. Bush fallowing is a method of one of the ways of maintaining soil fertility, in which a piece of land is allowed to regain lost nutrients for some time, say 3 or 4 years, from 4 years and above. After planting here, in plot 1, you leave it, you go over to plot 2 and farm. After planting plot 2, you leave it and go over to plot 3 and farm. After planting at plot 3, you leave it and go over to plot 4 and farm. After 4 or 5 years, come over to plot 1 again. That is your bush fallowing. In order to allow the land to regain its lost nutrients. During harvest, as you're harvesting your crops, nutrients are being drained from the soil. But when you allow that farmland to regain its lost nutrients for like 4 or 5 years, the nutrients will be returned. That's your bush fallowing. Now, planting of cover crops. These are crops that are planted into our farmland in order to check erosion. They are climbing crops. We call them climbers. They are climbing crops. They spread out into the farmland. They check erosion. In as much as they are checking erosion, their root nodules is into symbiotic relationship with bacteria in order to fix nitrogen in the soil. That is your cover crops. Examples include your watermelon, your Arachis hypogaea, that is your granite, your Arachis hypogaea, your Centrosema pubescens, your Calapogonium muconoides, your Lycopodium esculentus, and so on and so forth. These are some of the cover crops that are planted. Your Mucuna utilis. These are crops that fix nitrogen in the soil. Remember, when you plant granules, you don't need to add manure. It's of no use adding manure. It's of no use adding fertilizer, because the root nodules of those cover crops, they fix nitrogen in the soil. With the nitrogen fixing bacteria, talking about your azotobacter, your nitrosomonas, and all that. So the root nodules of these cover crops are into symbiotic relationship with those bacteria in order to fix nitrogen. Now, another one we have is mulching. Mulching has to do with covering of the crops, covering of the farmland with some pieces of materials such as dried leaves. Now to avoid evaporation of water from the soil, avoid loss of water, to avoid loss of moisture content from the soil. That is your mulching. Cover your farmland with dry leaves. As you are doing it, you are maintaining the soil fertility. Another one we have here is called weed control. When you weed your farmland from time to time, you are maintaining the soil fertility. You may ask, what is weed? You might be hearing about weed. Weed simply means plants growing where they are not wanted. You may have a portion of land where you planted out maize. All of a sudden, rice will start growing there. That rice becomes a weed. In as much as rice is edible for human consumption. But at that particular farmland, rice is a weed. So from time to time, when you check your weed, when you control them, you are maintaining your soil fertility. Finally, is crop rotation. What do we mean by crop rotation? Crop rotation has to do with planting of different kinds of crops on the same piece of land, year after year, in a sequential order. That's a crop rotation. Planting of different kinds of crops on the same piece of land, year after year, in a sequential order. Of course, we have principles that governs this crop rotation. Time may not permit me going into that. Number one is that deep-rooted crop should be followed by a shallow-rooted crop. Crops that are attacked by the same pest and disease should not follow each other, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the ways of maintaining soil fertility. Your fertilizer application, bush fallowing, planting of cover crops, your mulching, your weed control, your crop rotation, and so on and so forth. Okay, for the assignments, I will give nothing but one assignment. Nothing but one assignment. Let me write it on the board. Assignments. Why is broadcasting method? Why is broadcasting method of fertilizer application the best? Why is broadcasting method of fertilizer application the best? Thank you for listening and God bless you.